heavy, and the art is so pretty and big. Like it's really, this is how you should read Berserk. Anyways, welcome to the Dresden Files podcast, the one, the only, officially unofficial podcast there is. I am Andreas, geek from Denmark. As always, I have with me director Alex, she directs, and Justin, who has chosen death. This makes sense if you look at the stream or the video feed, not if you're listening.
It's always great when you have to explain the joke.
Yes. I realized as I was doing it that, like, you know, not everybody can actually see, because we also have only audio. And we are doing Summer Night's Writer's Room.
Hold on. I can traumatize some people with my thing. So.
Part something. How far are you in Brotherhood?
I don't know what episode it is. But it's the episode where, like, I think the last episode I watched was the one where Winry delivers the baby. Miracle on what's it? I can't remember the name of their.
Is that like a third of the way or something? Like
it's not a third.
It's approaching like episode 10. It's like somewhere in the episode 10 range. Like it might be 8, it might be 12. I don't remember, but
so 10 episodes. And how are you feeling about it?
So you missed the pre-show, but in summary,
I had to take a shower. It was necessary.
I know we could smell you from here, obviously. Yeah. So, in summary, I think that it's great. I don't think that it's perfect. As the judge speaking, my opinions come into this a little bit more than what normal people would consider, but I think it could have been. I think it's targeted at a younger audience, obviously. And as a result, there are some things that only anime can and will do usually that kind of annoy me, which detracts a couple of points. I think it's dark and fantastic, and I'm super glad that I didn't listen to you guys about sharing this with my kids, because in like the second or third episode when we've got to look at Mom, I was like, oh yes, thank God they're not in the room. And then I think watching Alex... the Chimera episode, and my oldest tries to walk in, and I'm like, you go sit back down with your brother. Like, nope, that's a hard.
Alex is the one who made that judgment. I hesitated and said they could probably be in the room,
but not when I was a kid.
Yeah. Like scars running around exploding blood out of people's body, and you guys are like, it's fine, it's almost Marvel level violence. No. Like,
I think I said that they could probably, some scenes no, but they could probably be in the room, but if they're actively following it, it's probably a bit too much.
Yeah So I'll look forward into a couple years when like he can my oldest can hit his exploratory phase and be like, oh yeah, you're probably going to make some girls happy if you go watch some of these animes, and I can tell you from experience. But yeah, so the director was making fun of me, or she wanted to make fun of me earlier about asking if I was watching it dubbed or not. And as I told my coworker yesterday, I was like, yes, I'm watching it dubbed, and I'm also watching it subbed in English because I'm old and I need the help.
Based. I am also a dubbed and subbed enjoyer.
Yeah,
I like subtitles in general, but I prefer to hear the audio in the language it was actually recorded.
I understand, but I can't read
that
and watch at the same time always, and this felt like something I wanted to see the art and the details on. So I sacrificed the dub for being able to watch the show, it's decently detailed, right? So I feel like that was a fair call,
The FMA Brotherhood dub is one of the ones that's really good. In both languages, they have really good voice actors.
Right.
I used to agree with you, Alex, because the English dubs used to be kind of shit. If I'm gonna keep it a buck,
sure.
But anime I feel like they've gotten a long way the past, I don't know, decade, maybe more. Like they've gotten a lot better. The dubs are like good quality.
Actual voice actors, and they actually care, and
it's becoming more of an industry to do the dubbing, and so I think they have more people and have more skill. And so I do think that in general things are improving, but I will still generally prefer subs. If that's just because I'm a weeb, but also the effective localization when they're changing voices over, sometimes they try to do different things. Like there's one particular anime that there was a robot And in Japanese, it sounds like a genderless robot. And in English, it sounds like a bitchy woman. And it ruins the show for me.
Sure. Yeah.
It,
there are definitely things that I feel like they take into account where it's like, regionally, this is not going to make sense, where it's like, this is clearly it was written and targeted towards like a Japanese audience. And then sometimes you'll get like what you said, localization, and they make some adjustments or they give them a different accent or something. And like, it's better when they've done their research and they've actually put in the effort and stuff like that. And, for older stuff, that's not always the case,
Nope.
But yeah. So anyway, overall, I think it's great. I think the story is fantastic. I think the animation is generally fantastic. I think the characters are great. I definitely trying to get out in front of the story sometimes, which is easier to do because I'm familiar with tropes and it's targeted at a younger audience. Like I was telling the director, like it doesn't hurt that I was told about the Chimera thing in advance, but like I saw that coming a mile away. Like I got it before the character did, but with the same clues, so that was one of the things too. I was like, even if I didn't know, it was like, oh, really? Your wife disappeared 2 years ago and you got a promotion 2 years ago. I wonder what that's about. And that's exactly how he figured it out. And I was like, dude, you're 10 minutes ago in a 15-minute episode. Come on, get with it, But, I guess I'm punching down on like a 15-year-old, even if he is totally a badass wizard at the same time. So, but
Are we gonna make an anime enjoy out of you think?
no, God, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
No, because that's the same thing. Like I was talking to my coworker, and it's like there's just anime things where I'm like, I mean, this is fantastic, right? I don't hate it. It is now one of like 3 to 5 that I have enjoyed, but that's not going to make me just go run out and start watching a bunch of anime to see if I accidentally like some, right?
No, but, so maybe we
and
can.
The real
suggest you
thing
more.
is, would I have enjoyed this in a different media better? And that's kind of the thing too, right? Like if like it's adorable to see Alphonse in this big badass suit of armor just be a child like all the time.
Alfonso
but
Eric.
yeah,
Correct.
but
love
it would it could have been better in just like a straight animation style, even in my opinion, right? And that's my opinion. That's just where we're at. I'm not saying it's bad or people are bad from liking it. I'm saying I don't enjoy it, so that's all. It's adorable at times and it lands, and then there are other times where it's a little goofy, like when the Führer shows up and everyone's got to be serious and shocked, and like they're emotes, right? They're just it's a cultural emote type of thing, and
yes.
So I get it. I just that's one of the things that kind of annoys me about anime, and is I'm not going to like run out and watch it, because I was talking about the ones that I do like, or at least the first couple that I started liking, which was Ghost in the Shell. Doesn't do that ever, basically. Vampire Hunter D, from the few episodes that I've seen, that's pretty serious, stuff along those lines. So apparently there's different kinds of anime that I'm like, if you could tell me the kind that I like, then maybe I'll go watch that kind. Right.
Right.
You would, but by judging
like,
by those two, you would probably, top of my head, that are also good. Psychopaths is really good, and Monster.
Yeah. So
there might be.
So the good one, obviously,
Brotherhood.
Brotherhood. Yeah. The different genres is shonen. It literally means young boys, like basically the teenage boys range, and so it has a lot of combat, not a whole lot of romance.
Hell yeah.
And it doesn't have a whole lot of sex, but it can get really, really dark. Like they're okay with horror and shonen, but they're like,
right.
It doesn't get racy very much. But then like seinen, which maybe that's what Ghost in the Shell is. It's much more adult, and so like it has darker sexual themes to it, as well as whatever else. But it's like the rated R version of like, it's just much less restricted. Shoujo would be something like Sailor Moon, I think.
Yeah. As a rule, I'm okay with boobs. It's a little weird when it's anime, in my opinion, because there's just too many layers in this. Like usually when you're watching it in American cinema, it's like, okay, well, she's over 18 and that's at least legally sufficient. And then you got to get into a little bit of moral. But then like with anime, it's like, I don't know, is she 300 presenting as an 8-year-old, or is she 8 presenting as a 300-year-old, or what are we doing here? And
she's a 3,000-year-old vampire.
Yeah. Right.
But everybody's a high school student. So
right.
It's just
and like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, right? Like Winry, it's like, I mean, and she's the love interest ish of the character, but it's like, you got to remember she's like 15. But the weird part was Hughes being like, oh, I heard you were being serviced in here. And it's like, whoa, dude. First of all, you're like in your 30s or 40s, making references about some 15-year-olds. Like that shit's going to get you canceled in America. Okay. So you got to be careful about that. So, but yeah, anyway. I don't hold that against it. I realize, there's other things that go into it, but yeah, I'd like it, I'm not, I don't think I'm going to get into like hentai anytime soon. And, like the rated R, like, oh, look at animated boobs and stuff. So anyway, but I'm not opposed. Just, I don't think I'm going to go seek it out either at the same time.
Well, yeah, keep watching.
Yeah. It gets even better, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, that's one of the things that I think about too. Cause it's like, we're only, say 10 episodes in, it's not even 20% of the story, right? And so just trying to project out how far out this goes, and we haven't even seen the main bad guy yet, but we're starting to understand more about the bad actors, and stuff like that. So but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch the whole thing, right? Like I'm enjoying it, and whatever. But speaking of anime, we need to get on with Dresden. So
yes.
So like what kind of anime is Dresden in your head? Like where would that fit? Would you go for the like adult more, thing, or do we need to see a chibi version of Thomas and Dresden at some point? So
once in a while, only when they're being dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a shonen, but I think it would be better in the more adult category, because there is a lot of hot women sick sometimes.
Are you allowed to cross-pollinate some of that stuff? Like, what if it was like 95% like, the adult stuff, and then like you had the one episode, like they did a musical episode, but in this case it was the chibi one. Like, how funny would it be to do like it's all adult, right? And then we finally get
kind of
yeah we finally get to backup, and it's all chibi, and so it's like, but you play it straight, right? You play it very serious and dour and all of this other stuff, but then they're chibi the entire time. I think that would be hilarious. I would watch that still, but
yeah, you can do all sorts of things with anime.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if I was being too crazy, or not. Yeah. So okay. So yeah, having a chibi version of Leah is really kind of baking my noodle right now. But I'm pretty sure last time we finished off with chapter 21, roughly, and we're starting in chapter 22. And basically, what has happened is Dresden had escaped Walmart. They did the whole thing with Grum and the chainsaw, and frosted over and hit the plant fiend, and then Murph, also with the chainsaw. And then in chapter 22, they went to the alphas, which is interesting because, we're trying not to involve them so that they could get patched up and kind of debrief with them is, how I termed it for my notes anyway. But there's not a lot of meat here in my opinion, but the one thing I did want to read was the first line, because I was telling the director, it's like, I know he's too old and probably even, definitely not the right build for this right now. But I read this line with Patton Oswalt in mind, with the whole, "You're kidding," Billy said, as his voice touched with disbelief. "A chainsaw? Where did you get the gasoline?" So we got to find somebody who can hit that note, at least my vote anyway. But yeah, Murph looked up from her wounded leg and the willowy Georgia, because we got to know these things. Who had cut her jeans away and was cleaning the long gashes she'd acquired from the ankle to mid-calf. gas generator, backup power supply for all the food freezers. They had a 10-gallon plastic jug of it. So, anyway. We do, story wise, right? We do get some little nuggets and stuff like that, but this is mostly like observations and building the scene and stuff like that. So we don't get a ton of dialogue here. But for example, like I think this is where they establish, or I think this is mostly where they establish the fact that the alphas are actually on patrol now. And that's why like Dresden keeps coming back to them at times when he's being chased by something or needs like an intermediate place to be before he gets back to his apartment or his next place. So, he talks about how young they were when he first met them, but how much they've grown up. And, Billy's apartment's not a large one, but they'd been challenged by a tall, thin young man in the parking lot and shadowed to the door by a pair of wolves who kept just far enough away to make it difficult to see them in the shadows, so it's like, which one of these is Kirby? Because, we know Kirby's on patrol until, he isn't.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. But I mean, he pretty much doesn't even get named until like maybe once or twice before, Turncoat, I think. But, yeah. And then, Dresden's talking to, Billy and Murphy a little bit and just been like, wait, I mean, they attacked a Walmart, so it should be swarming with cops by now. And it's like, nope, you underestimate the human mind. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. There's not going to be any evidence of an exploding line. No leak is going to show up at the gas company. No, get real, Billy. You think people are going to be taken seriously by City Hall if they tell them we really don't know what messed up all these people? We don't know what caused all the damage. We don't know why no one heard or saw anything. And we don't know what the reports of gunshots at the scene were about. Hell no. People would be accused of incompetence, publicly embarrassed, fired. No one wants that. So gas leak.
Something has to go down on the paperwork for the insurance claim.
Sure. Yeah. 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 So, I mean, I guess there is a bit of dialogue, right? This is where, Murphy starts ribbing Dresden about putting on the boots. So if that's a favorite scene,
it's a scene. It's strange. Yeah. A little bit. Okay.
I don't even really remember this scene.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's just funny because the going back and forth, but it's like, what, I soaked him in gasoline first, So, yeah. Oh, okay. You've got boots, Murph, but yeah. Yeah, the whole barely an assist, is pretty funny to me. So, yeah, let's see. Yeah, so I think they end up taking her to an actual hospital, right, from the scene, because George is like, we could do first aid, but like she's not going to be able to walk again. And I think this is where I brought it up a little bit last time, I think, but this is where it kind of clicked, maybe, where I was like, wait a minute, which leg is screwed up right now? And is this the same leg that gets screwed up again later? That would be interesting. So, yeah. Okay. This is where he fills up on pizza and goes out to the porch or whatever. And yeah, the balcony. Thank you. And Meryl is there inexplicably, in my opinion. So, because she's like on the next balcony over, and I'm like, so this tiny apartment has two balconies, or she's in the adjacent apartment, as if that's not weird, So
she's on the next one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Not on the same balcony. She's not just there hanging out with the people who are on patrol and possibly helping and just eating their pizza.
Oh, other side of the balcony. So it is my bad, Yeah.
Okay.
I nearly jumped off the balcony in sheer reaction. My hand brushed the paper plate and the pizza fell to the parking lot below. I whirled around and found Meryl sitting in the chair at the other side of the balcony. Which, is that less weird? Like, does she know the alphas other than like Billy chased her off a couple times?
Well, so at the point where they were coming out from the underground and then Meryl like grabbed Dresden by the back of the neck and all that, then they were like de-escalating and talking and actually trying to help. And Meryl offered to pay a whole bunch of money to Dresden, and he really, really, really needs it because he was like 3 months past due on all of his rent to find Lily. Right. So now he's trying to find the damsel in distress that is her best friend. So they're all on the same side.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that part I get, but like,
at what
point
like, that's
did
at
she
the
get
point
to know
where,
about the secret hideout?
well, Billy was right there with Dresden. And
so we're just assuming.
Yeah. Just so like, okay, well,
yeah.
work with them. They'll help. They're helping.
I mean, and for the record, like obviously Lily's the hot one, right? But like she's barely a damsel in distress. She's just fully kidnapped. Right, she's on ice effectively. Meryl is right there in front of you. She's the damsel in distress. Like I get it. She's a big half ogre and she can take care of herself ish, but she's the one that's vulnerable, man. Like got to take care of that. So okay. Yeah. So this we get a little bit of insight into how the she see Dresden, because Meryl is a wild fae and she hears things, right? So, so this, I mean, I guess we can go over this paragraph. It's worth including, but like I said, there's, not like a ton here. So depends on who's talking. The she crowd thinks you're an interesting mortal pet of Mabs. The vampire wannabe crowd thinks you're some kind of psychotic vigilante with a penchant for vengeance and mayhem, because he is. Sort of a one-man Spanish Inquisition. Ironic. Most of the magical crowd thinks you're distant, dangerous, but smart and honorable. Crooks think you're a hitman for the outfit, or maybe one of the families back east. Straights think you're a fraud trying to bilk people out of their hard-won cash, except for Larry Fowler, who probably wants you on the show again. Foreshadowing. Like it's like there's a lot in that paragraph, But and what do you think? I think you need a haircut. So
she's very down to earth type of person.
Right. Yeah. Bill called all the morgues and hospitals. No Jane Doe with green hair. Bummer. Okay. And then they talk about her, family history. Sorry, I think I said half ogre. She's a half troll. Wildly different, of course. So. And he talks to her a little bit about what the next steps are. And, trying to figure out some of the clues he learned from Walmart, I guess, with the whole, like, he got frosted over, but also got attacked by a giant plant monster. Does that mean that they're working together? Oh, no. So, and, putting together the fact that the Chlorofiend should have flattened Murphy into a puddle of slurry. This is all internal monologues, so we're going to have to figure out some other way. Maybe we just continue the outside conversation between him and Meryl, if we anyway, if we decide to include it, but specifically the clue here is that the Chlorofiend couldn't hurt Murphy because it didn't have any hold over her, right? Which probably factors into the fact that Murphy was able to shut Dresden out with the whole like competition thing that they weren't having, because they couldn't do anything to Murphy because she's not the emissary.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. Yeah. He's talking about the Chlorofiend here, but an awareness both intelligent and commanding, but one who could not, for some reason, kill Murphy when she attacked it. Why? Because, Harry, you idiot, he says this out loud. Murphy isn't attached to either of the fairy courts, I told myself out loud. So. What's that got to do with it? I asked myself again out loud, and people think I'm crazy. Yeah.
It's funny how often he talks to himself out loud, and then Billy becomes concerned about it. And it's like you've seen him do this multiple times. This is just his habit.
But this is more. This is extra, and he's never pretended he was a different person, I think would be the thing. He's always talked to himself, and people do that sometimes, right? He's not muttering. That's an important distinction, I think. But when he starts being like, hey, sexy lady, you want to go get some dinner? Then like to the person who's not there, then it's a little concerning. Like, your place or mine. I'm like, you're by yourself, Harry. It's going to be your place no matter what, So I could see the difference there is what I mean, basically. Yeah. And then while they're outside, Oh no, yeah. The news comes on and starts talking about the unprecedented storm front as, like tropic air starts pushing into Chicago and a winter storm starts pushing in from the north. And, Billy's like, that's not a natural storm, is it? Side effect, like the toads. It means we're running out of time.
Table. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, now, yeah. So, because that's what chapter 23 is basically. So, that's the end of 22, start of 23. He takes the Beetle north of town. We could have 30 seconds of him driving through torrential rains, type of thing. This is where he's going to summon Leah, basically. Which she still responds this time, so she's not on ice yet.
She's not on ice yet.
Important background information, but not important to the episode per se.
It'll be important. It's one of those things that has to be known that she's not on ice yet, and she says some things right here. She's going to be on ice soon because of the AFTMA that she got last book.
Right. Yeah. Like importantly for the story, right? She is. Theoretically, she's nem-infected, right?
Mm-hmm.
She already had to rebalance scales with Mab a little bit, but it wasn't enough, as we're going to see eventually. So, this is where you get to be fun and just be like, who's talking right now? And who's talking at when? Because it's not necessarily Nemesis the entire time, but is Nemesis the one that says, never let her bring you back here? Or is that Leah? So...
Yeah.
And it might legitimately be Leah, but it's more fun if it's Nemesis, I think.
Well, it's fun because we don't know, honestly.
Right.
But if I remember, it was the description that she looked kind of like trying to hide that she was saying anything. And so if she's trying to hide from Mab that she was saying something, that's very close to the idea of lying, and so maybe makes it harder for Leah to be actually the one saying, "Never let her bring her you here." But she remarks on that again back in Changes, when he has to go to the stone table again, and she says, "I told you never let her bring you here."
Right. True. Because she's free by then,
Yeah.
So probably Leah then, legitimately concerned.
I mean, it is fun that we don't know. Having an answer at this point would feel kind of disappointing.
Okay. I'll let that one ride. So, so he sets up a little bit of a ritual on the circle, I think, even, right? So pretty much like right on a promontory of sorts, a rock that he just goes out, and then he starts calling out to her across the lake. A sudden presence appeared beside me, and a woman's voice said, "Honestly, child, it isn't as though I'm far away. There's no reason to shout." So I jerked in surprise and nearly fell into the lake. Yeah. I turned to my left.
Actually, what we learn later with her home being next to Dresden's place.
Not her home, just her garden. Yeah.
One of her gardens.
Yeah. So
I thought that was why she was sitting drinking her tea when she was off the clock.
I mean, maybe. So, yeah.
The hounds playing around.
Right. That giant worm she likes to ride. So, but yeah. So this will be fun for special effects ish. But she's standing on the surface of the lake, bobbing up and down with the waves. So. Green screen, but still, it's a little
the bobbing
bit
makes
for
it
the
funny.
Special effects. Yeah. And we get to reintroduce her description. We already know pretty much. You look lovely as the stars tonight. Such a flatterer. I'm already enjoying this conversation much more than last time. So. Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, which is basically nothing, she does say, they do quibble a little bit about the last time they were seen together, and you should know better, dear godchild. I cannot speak what is untrue. So. Yeah, I was just comparing against my notes here. So they've got a lot of banter and everything, but I think I mostly focused on some of the, the traveling parts. So I'm just trying to find it's like in the middle. It seems like it's in the middle of a thing. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So they're going back and forth, and going with Leah wasn't the best way to get what I wanted. It was just the only way. I took a breath and took her hand. Her skin felt, whatever. It doesn't matter. Cool silk. Blah blah blah. She gave me an oblique glance, and so he says, "All right." And then after them, I need to see the mothers because she's going to take him to the battleground, right? Mm-hmm. Leah gave me an oblique glance and said, "Survive the flood before hurling yourself into the fire, child. Close your eyes." Why? Child, stop wasting time with questions. You have given me your hand. Close your eyes. I muttered a curse. This is where I my notes started. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. That's not enough context. I muttered a curse for myself and did it. My godmother spoke something, a string of liquid syllables in a tongue I could not understand, but it made my knees turn rubbery and my fingers suddenly weak. See, she doesn't have a Geller field, so if he's watching, the demons could get in. So, we've got to close our eyes and stuff like that. But a wave of disorientation, dizzying, but not unpleasantly so, scrambled my sense of direction. I felt a breeze on my face, a sense of movement, but I couldn't have said whether I was falling or rising or moving forward. The movement stopped and the whirling sensations passed. Thunder rumbled again very loudly, and the surface I stood on shook with it, light playing against my closed eyelids. We are here. I opened my eyes, and clouds, right? So now we're standing on the clouds and all of that stuff.
And now the green screening.
Yes. Yeah, right. Yeah, now we go back to Never Ending Story and some other Willow, maybe get some of those really cool old school graphics going. So claymation trolls running across the battlefield. Harry's a little slow on the uptake, so he panics for a second.
What? Starborn?
Right.
Every time someone says every time someone says he's slow on the uptake, I have to say Starborn.
Yeah, I'll credit Ed Elric for that one. If somebody says something he doesn't know, and he immediately starts shouting questions at them, which is slightly better than not asking the damn question in the first place. So yeah. It's like he's getting his ass kicked and then screaming questions at them like they're just supposed to stop and answer. So it's at least he tried. He
does try. It's it's maybe they do answer once in a while. They will, and it just
right.
He's surprised when it does happen, but it's he will always ask the question if he can.
Yeah. Yeah. So pretty much they're at the stone table. There's description of it. He found behind him a stone gray and ominous and enormous, startlingly solid amid all the drifting white. I took a step back from it and saw the shape of it, a table made of a massive slab of rock, the legs made of more stones as thick as the pillars of Stonehenge. Writing writhed across the surface of the stone, runes that looked a little familiar. Norse, maybe? Some of them looked more like Egyptian. They seemed to take something from several different sources, leaving them unreadable. Lightning flashed again through the ground, and a wave of blue-white light flooded over the table, through the runes, lighting them like Las Vegas neon for a moment. And then he tells us how smart he is because Ebenezer mentioned this one time. So
how much does Ebenezer know about it?
Everything. He's a senior council member. Maybe not everything, but more than
he knows pretty much everything, but won't share shit.
Well,
Yeah,
Rashid knows
wizard.
of the stone table, considering he
Rashid
had a
almost
piece of
knows
it.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Rashid might have told Ebenezer something.
Yeah. This is where we get the whole blood is power, and the She Courts share it basically half the year, and Summer holds the table now, but not for much longer. So I stepped toward the table and extended a hand. The air around it literally shook, pressing against my fingers, making my skin ripple visibly. That'll be a fun, thing to do. As though from a strong wind, but I felt nothing. I touched the surface of the table itself and could feel the power in it buzzing through the flowing runes like electricity through high voltage cables. Numbed his fingers. He jerked his fingers back. They were numb, and the nails of the two that had touched the table were blackened at the edges. Wisps of smoke rose from them. Fucking wizards. Don't touch shit. Like, seriously, guys.
You should know
rule
better.
number 1. It's rule number 1. So, yeah. More discussion. I'm shortcutting this for time and because we mostly know what's going on, but this will be good for the episode, basically, for some more like expose types of stuff, right? Some more, not expose. What's the word I'm looking for? Exposition. Yeah. Adjacent, but slightly different. So, because you must see if you were to understand Leah. So, but in this case, I think she's talking about he needs to use his sight to look at Mab and Titania. So he drew in a slow breath, and wizards can see things most people can't. Let's go through the whole wizard sight thing again. This will be another fun one. Like, we could do, like a ultraviolet view, like from Riddick from Pitch Black. We'll do ultraviolet, and you can see like the armies out there like glowing and stuff like that. And I don't know, that's one of the things that comes to mind when he's looking at the queens. But
I feel like
how do you imagine it?
A menacing acid trip.
You think so?
Yeah, just ultraviolet, just like a sense of like heat or dark that's not dimensional enough, in my opinion. So like everything has to be crazy wild colors, sure. Or like random crazy shadows, darkness, and into really high contrast, and just everything seems unique on its own. It's going to be really hard to give direction to an artist like that, but just like everything looks crazy, make it happen.
Yeah, I need you to go rent a cabin in the woods and spend the weekend on acid, and let us know what you come back with. So,
yes,
and don't
spend a
tell
week on
anybody
acid while thinking of fairy armies.
Right. Like, yeah. So, lots of description here, trying to convey. This is like describe non-Euclidean geometry, right? Types of stuff where it's just like, now that's a word we use, but not enough people are going to understand what that even means, let alone how to describe it. And that's a lot of this as well. Like, the cloudy landscape absolutely seized with magical energies. Wild green and golden light spilled, falling over the landscape like a translucent garden from the south. From the other side, cold blue and purple and greenish powers spread like crystals of ice. And it's not static, right? The energies are flowing back and forth to each hilltop. How do you convey the overwhelming presence that he's feeling? Stuff like that, because it's like we're not always necessarily getting a description of what it looks like to him, but how it feels. So then we're gonna have to extrapolate that and share it because we're a visual media. Or we could
sound, music,
right? Sure. We could also totally cheapen it out where instead of seeing what he sees, we see his face. And you can play that up if we're short on budget, so, or hate our fans. I'm reminded there's an episode like that in Gravity Falls where they have like they get attacked by claymation for whatever reason, and it's normally animated, but they do like the claymation, and they talk about how expensive it is. And so the final fight, you just see shadows as they're watching, and you're watching them watch the fight. And they're like, oh man, it's so good that we're facing this way. So they're like even fourth wall a little bit, you know, teasing the audience. And then like something, you know, like explodes and you see the shadow and it's like, oh, I'm so glad I got to see that. That was the best part. You know, it's just hilarious. So, yeah. And then Dresden cries, you know, like cries and whines. There's a difference here. These aren't manly tears or anything. It's like, you should have warned me. Like, it would have changed nothing. You needed to see. I regret that was the only way. Do you understand? So he kind of understands. This is Dresden we're talking about. Like,
yeah,
he's going to have that sight with him forever, and he still doesn't entirely understand. So.
Asking Dresden to understand things is it's a high ask.
Yeah. So Leah does have to still guide him to it. You know, so you know, he talks about, you know, sussing out the ladies, the knights, the queens, and everything like that. And Leah's like, and the emissaries. And he's like hell, I'm not fighting in some kind of fucked up fairy battle in the clouds. Perhaps not. He does. Spoilers. I snorted, but you didn't help me. I needed to speak to them, find out if one of them was responsible. And so you did, more truly than if you had exchanged words. I frowned at her and thought through what I knew, because I'm an idiot, and what I'd learned from my trip to the stone table. Mab shouldn't be in any hurry. If summer is missing her knight, winter has the edge if they wait. There's no need to take the table. Yes. But Summer is moving to protect the table. That means Titania thinks someone in Winter did it. But if Mab is responding instead of waiting, it means she isn't sure why Summer is moving. She's just checking Titania's advance. And that means she isn't sure who done it either. Simplistic, but accurate enough reasoning, Poppet. Someday he'll be a real boy.
But we can't ask, like, what a Starborn is.
Yes,
we can like see their thoughts about big fairy politics and their war movements, but we're gonna ask about what a Starborn is.
I know. And you know what the real answer is? This is the one time I think I'm going to defend Dresden on this, but it's because the audience shouldn't know yet. That's why Dresden hasn't asked the question.
I know that's why. I can still poke fun of it.
Right. But yeah, because like, you know, I find it more rewarding as an audience member if I ask the question and then it comes out of the main character's mouth, right? And that's some of the media that I like to consume, is that, you know, like, especially if I'm watching something in my wheelhouse, if I'm watching Star Wars or Star Trek or something, and I know the ins and outs, and just be like, oh no, this shouldn't work like this because of XYZ, and then the characters are like, well, we can't do that because of, you know, ABC. And it's like, oh, okay, so you did think about it. At least you did acknowledge it. I'm mollified. We can move on. You know, you know, at least give us one where Dresden, like, it could have been a different meme, right? It still would have been a meme, but it's like, it could have been a meme of like, you know, Dresden's like, you know, where are we and what, you know, what's a Starborn? And, you know, Leah could be like, well, we're at the stone table and that's not important right now, or otherwise get interrupted, you know, or something like that, which is what we kind of hope / joke about with 12 months, you know, is like at the end of 12 months, does he finally ask the question? They're like, okay, Harry, so here's the truth about Starborn, as he gets sucked into a mirror dimension, right? You know, that would be hilarious. We'll see if it happens, but you know, it could be a different meme than Dresden just is like the world's greatest detective and doesn't ask the basic question, you know.
By like the 6th time someone addressed him as Starborn, maybe he should ask, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what I have no idea what it means, actually. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, that, and it's like, you know, he can string these disparate ideas together, but he hasn't figured out what the audience knows, which is, you know, that Starborn is a fulcrum and Destroyer is one of those two pieces, because, you know, fulcrums pivot,
Yeah.
so there's probably a destroyer, probably a creator type of decision.
You can't say that word.
Which one?
Now I have to go pivot. It's
Oh,
a Friends
okay.
reference. It's with the sofa.
Oh, hypotenuse. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now he needs to go talk to the mothers. So, and even Leah can't do that one if I remember right. So, and she's being called back. See, be like, oh, speaking of which, fairy godmother, what's a starborn? And she's like, oh shit, sorry, Mab's
Out of
calling.
time.
Like, if only you'd asked me that like 30 minutes earlier when I had time to tell you all about it. So
I think it's very interesting retrospectively to think of Leah's behavior here, whether or not she was the one who got to say, never let her bring you here, or if that was Nemesis. The way that she is guiding Dresden right now is in the service of Mab and the fairies in reality.
mm-hmm.
She told him to look at the stone table in the battlefield that they're building in order to not be lied to by words. She was guiding him to actual truth.
Okay.
So it does seem like she is very much in control of at least her own goals here. She's acting as his godmother, not as his enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe the rebalancing of power by selling his debt to Mab did actually help, made her more beholden to what she cared about, to Mab in reality. And maybe she was actually able to fight the infection for a while.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all, but devil's advocate from Nemesis's perspective, total conjecture, whatever. Nemesis has already won in its eyes, potentially. The only thing it needed to do was it bumped off a knight by corrupting Aurora, and now it just needs to sit back and wait for for the Fae to do what the Fae are going to do.
But because Aurora still needs to kill Lily on the stone table, Nemesis still needs to get that part done.
But
so it's
but
not.
What does Leah have to do with it? That's what I'm saying. We don't have to control Leah for those goals to be accomplished.
But keeping the Starborn Fulcrum, who can see past everything and be more resilient against Nemesis in general, away from Aurora.
If Nemesis understands that. Because if Nemesis understood that and could fully control Leah would just, she would just crush Tristan.
That's it's evidence that Leah is in control of herself more or less at this point.
Sure.
Because if she was in Nemesis control, she would be more in league with helping Aurora, even without understanding it. Assuming that all the different Nemesises communicate with each other enough to be able to know what's happening.
It also may inform a restriction on Nemesis that I think we got word of Jim that Nemesis can control something like 13 people, right? Yeah. How much can it put a finger? Can it put a string on 13 people, or is it full body puppeteering 13 people? Maybe it couldn't do anything with Leah because it was busy with Aurora at the time, even though she was nemfected,
right?
Like, because we only ever see it act through one proxy at a time, right? The closest we get is Cold Days, where it's got Cat Sith and Maeve,
Justine,
right?
And Maeve.
Well, Justine, but again, do we know, did we see it puppeteering more than one of them at a time? We never see more than one on screen at a time, type of thing. So that I can recall anyway. So
we don't see them on screen, but clearly it was attempting to control Maeve and Cat Sith enough at the same time to be acting as pawns in the same game.
Right. Yeah. So, but in any case, and for something as big as the Apocalypse, where are the other 11 agents of Nemesis right now? Because if it had control of Leah and Aurora, that would have been plenty enough to jostle everybody's elbow, if not even just take a direct fight at that point. So it is kind of weird that we don't see it use more of the pieces going on. And then you got to ask yourself why. And, if it understood Dresden and his nature, or certainly understood it after the fact, or did it not even understand up until, White Knight? White Knight's the deeps where Lash sacrifices, right? So,
but he's already been exposed to He Who Walks Behind. He's exposed again in during Blood Rites.
Sure.
So, and yeah, he was already identified by Justin Demorn as being a Starborn, or potentially, and therefore He Who Walks Behind.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the other part of it too, though, is that there's hundreds of Starborn, right? Potentially as well. So being a Starborn by itself may not be the big scary thing. It may be a Venn diagram where it's like there's a big group of Starborn, but there's really only going to be one fulcrum, and they don't know which ones they are. That might be why Dracul likes eating them, and they've got like Listen and people like that, so that they want to control more of the board. They don't know who's actually jostling stuff, though. I mean, if they're familiar at all with what's been happening in the Dresden verse, then Harry's a pretty prime candidate right now. Who else are you going to go after? I'm sure Elaine bumps people's elbows from time to time, but
right,
they just need to look at the front cover.
It is again
Maury likes to keep a low profile overall.
So Elaine, the other potential Starborn that we know of that isn't Listen, that is also involved in Summer Night on the other side with Aurora, who's infected.
Right.
It seems like they have two on each side, or like each side has a Starborn, each side has someone who's infected, and Aurora's not capable of fighting against it, or it like fed into her want to save things. I guess
right.
She said all she wanted was the pain to stop.
Right.
Every time we talk about this Nymphiction and Nemesis and all this, it's just we haven't gotten this confirmed. I want to ask Jim about it, but he probably will just tell me. I'm not going to tell you how it works because some clearly seems to just be able to be overtaken completely, like we saw with Cat Sith, and some seems it's like they get the freedom to choose. Where my headcanon is that it depends how powerful they are. If they're powerful enough, Nemesis can't just willy-nilly control them, but he can give them free will and manipulate them.
Sure.
But I would really like to know the mechanics of it. Like what Jim, like I'm sure Jim has like an idea about how it actually works.
Yeah, it's almost certainly got rules, that's for us to figure out, at least until the end of the series, and then maybe we'll just do like 5 back-to-back interviews and ask every question we've ever wanted once the BAT's done. So.
Like Justine, for example, since she's immortal, it seems like she was maybe semi-incoherent, kind of knocked out after defeating, and then Nemesis takes her over, and from the moment on that she is this coherent Justine that we've known from most of the series, actually, that's been Nemesis the whole time. Like, not Justine in any way, completely just Nemesis.
I was gonna say, like, was Justine even there, or did Nemesis get a human body that was mostly just lizard brain at that point, right? So
she might have recovered in there over time, but I think when she went from being in a wheelchair and went into being the assistant of the White Court and everything, that was Nemesis who maneuvered itself in there. And when she's rational and everything, even before, right, she wasn't completely rational. Like the normal, like the actual Justine that we knew when she was off her meds and not being fed on. She was. I don't know what diagnosis she's supposed to have. Is she bipolar or something like that?
She has some form of mood disorder. Bipolar is not quite that, but the thing, like, if there's any amount of Justine that's remaining, the true love protection kept getting applied between her and Thomas, even if He Walks Within is taking over most of it.
Yeah.
The true love protection is still there.
Has to be there, right? Her love still has to be in there. Justine's essence, soul, whatever, still has to be there. I would guess. Otherwise, this true love protection would not. like Nemesis doesn't really love Thomas, right? Like that's. I think we can agree on that. So I think she has to still be in there, and I guess she's probably mostly recovered over this time, but she's just made like the classic mind control trope where they're like, help! They're standing there banging on the windows of the eyes and can't get out, and she can't really do anything. I would guess.
Yeah, that could be. We'll need to find out.
She slips through the cracks. She's in the back rooms now, so that's why you don't know Clip. Don't want to get trapped.
Yeah, I've seen those backroom thing. I haven't seen it in a while. Are they still making backroom videos?
Does it matter? Do any are any of my references contemporary? Have you ever known me to be like really up on my?
It's pretty
memes
recent.
and-
Like last year, I saw a lot of those backroom videos, but it's
Yeah.
I haven't like seen it in a while.
I don't know. I know they're making a movie about the whole Skibbity thing, so you know that's too mainstream by now. So, but yeah. Yeah, and I've got an 8-year-old who spends too much time on YouTube at times, so I get to
Hopefully
surprise
not
and
watching
impress
the
him.
backrooms because that's kind of creepy.
Well, he brought it up once, and he started talking about like liminal spaces without using the terminology and whatever, and I was like, oh, you mean like the back rooms? And he's like, how do you know about the back rooms? I'm like, how do you know about the back rooms?
I can know about it. You're too young to know about the back
I was
rooms.
like, you're 8. I've explored many scary and dark places of the world. Like, what are you doing? So
You should have just, if he's like, how do you know about the back room? Well, where do you think Dad goes every day?
yeah, right. Yeah, we haven't quite gotten to the let's be terrified of Dad stage. That'll be coming. So he still thinks he can fight, and like we're trying to impress upon him that it's like we appreciate, like, I love me a fighter. I'd rather you be a fighter than a runner, but you're 8, you run, like the adults can fight, and whatever. But yeah, he was play fighting with me the other day when I was trying to give him a hug. So I've got him in my arms and he's just like punching me in the sternum and the collarbone and stuff. And I was like, thanks for holding back, but I'm still sore. And like, while I appreciate the fighting, like if, he's telling me about how if a stranger tried to pick him up, that's what he'd do. And I'm like, still run, like you got away with that because I didn't hit you back. Like for a variety of reasons why that wouldn't happen. But it's like if I was a stranger and trying to get you, one hit, that's all it would take.
I actually saw someone, a kid around that age, I think, where some woman was following her and like was being really creepy. So she just went into a flower store and went in behind the desk, was like, "Can you help me? This person's following me."
Right.
And then they're just like, "Yeah, sure." Get out of the store.
Well, that's what we're trying to get to. It's like, you need to be a little smarter, a little bit sneakier and trickier and stuff like that. Little more thinking, a little bit more running, a little bit less fighting, so 16 to 25-ish, let's go all in on the fighting. But let's
post
let him get
puberty,
growth
like
spurt
when the
too.
muscle mass kicks in,
Right. Yeah.
After you've had a couple of years of wrestling or whatever it is you have available in schools over there, that's some sort of martial art.
Yeah. Yep.
I always see wrestling team in American movies, like when there's something that's fight related in schools. Usually, I don't assume most high schools have like karate or taekwondo or something like that.
They usually don't. But I was gonna say, go watch Karate Kid. That's what you need to know. So
hell yeah, I love that show.
But I mean, a lot of people they'll just go to dojos and they'll pay for the lessons extracurricular anyway. So
as long as it's not a mech dojo.
Yeah.
If you know that term.
Nope.
Basically graduating really fast and like within 2 years you have a black belt, but you haven't really learned much.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. All right. To wrap this up and, get us to chapter 24, which 24's got some meat in it anyway, but Basically, Leah dumps him back off on the shore, tells him he's out of luck. He goes back to the Blue Beetle and it's dead. And so he has to catch a cab back to his apartment, and he's pretty much going to give up anyway because it's too big. He just looked at the queens. He is a tiny bug, and he's going to have to tell him, like, you know, I failed the trial. This is too big for anybody. Don't be an idiot. And Morgan's going to tell him off. So we'll open with that next time, basically. But
I can't wait. It's unreal how much more likable Morgan actually becomes.
Yeah.
He's so not likable in these books here. In the
oh yeah, like I hate him in this scene, but I also like love this scene, you know, a little bit. So it's like I'm excited to have an actor like sell me on this. You know, it's like we'll just have him like have them do this and a few other things for, you know, for their audition. You know, and just be like, I want you to be so smug and gloat so much while you're reading this. You know, like.
It's just tell me, and you later you'll have to do the Jaime Lannister, and go from a despicable cunt that nobody likes to actually a fan favorite because he
Lucio likes him, you know.
Not enough.
Yeah,
not the way Morgan wants anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe he just no. I'm not gonna say that. You know what I was going to say.
Maybe. You want to take us out?
Yeah, sure. I can take you out. Okay. This has been the episode of the Dresden Files podcast. We are live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's either Dresden or it's while we're recording, where we talk about whatever we want. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/brokenjars, where you get access to our Discord, and you can chat with us, have gift wars with us. Tell us why I'm smart and Ben is smart and EG stupid and Director Alex is awesome and Justin is always right. Well, he's not here to defend himself, so I'm gonna take the shots when I can. And Ben needs a lift once in a while, so yeah. So do that. Money,
Alrighty.
us, podcast, keep going. Yay!